Hello, leapers and fellow travelers. Welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel. I am your host, Sam, and I am flying solo for probably the next couple of months. Dennis is fine. We're fine. All is well. He is just taking some time to focus on a few other things before the premiere, the expected premiere, the hoped for premiere of season 2 in the fall, which should be late September, early October. Now, I'll just start right off by saying that based off of everything that I have heard, including talking to a couple of people involved with the production of the show, that the belief is the show will indeed premiere in the fall as was originally planned. So we'll see those 8 episodes of season 2 sometime in, again, late September, early October, I believe. And then whether or not it runs 8 straight weeks or there are any breaks or interruptions or anything in the midst of those 8 episodes, I have no idea. And I don't think anyone else really does at this particular point either. A lot of things are in flux. A lot of things are up in the air, which is the reason why I'm actually re-recording this particular episode, because I recorded it a few days ago and had been working on the editing when the news landed yesterday that SAG-AFTRA would be joining the WGA in the picket lines for a strike against the unfair practices of the AMPTP. It has created an interesting situation for the entire entertainment sector, film and television, obviously. I think probably the hardest hit and most affected by this particular circumstance. I just want to say right up front, to make it completely clear, I'm sure listeners, longtime listeners will know this, we absolutely stand with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. We believe that what they are doing is essential to the future of the business to ensure that artists are treated fairly and paid and compensated fairly for the work that they do. AI is not the future of entertainment. AI will never be the future of entertainment. It simply cannot compete with the heart and soul of the writing and acting craft. The workmanship that goes into this and where these stories come from and the way that people choose to tell these stories and the truths that we share with one another cannot be replicated by anything artificial, because that's exactly what it will be: artificial and heartless and soulless. It'll be an imitation. It'll be manufactured. It will not be the real thing. To be completely frank, we have a hard enough time not doing that when there is actual heart and soul involved to make things look manufactured. So when it strikes as being true, when it strikes as having that heart and that soul, it is worth cherishing, and it is worth making sure that those that help to create that art are compensated fairly and treated fairly, and not cast aside for a cheaper and soulless, hollow way of doing things. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Quantum Leap and how things will affect the production and promotion of season 2 of Quantum Leap. We know that the initial order for season 2 was 13 episodes. Similarly with season 1, they got a 13 episode order. Season 2 got a 13 episode order. They completed 8 episodes. Now, the interesting thing is that even though filming was completed on those initial 8 episodes, by the time the 8th episode started filming, the WGA strike had already started, which meant that no writers could be on set for those episodes. We've talked a little bit about the importance of this and the fact that writers had contributed greatly to the shows while they were in production. That's not to say that episode 8 isn't going to be good, or it's not going to represent the artistic vision of the writer and the cast and crew and the collaborative effort that goes into making this show. It's just to say that unfortunately the writer could not be present on set during the production of that particular episode. It also means that post-production, which I believe had completed on at least the first 5 episodes, maybe the first 6, but not on 7 or 8, obviously, could also not be attended to or collaborated on with the writers. How that will affect things, we just don't know. That said, again, from some of the conversations that I've been fortunate enough to have, it seems like people are very excited and very passionate about the 8 episodes as they stand, even though, most of these people have not actually been able to see any of this content yet, because, again, they just cannot be involved due to the strike. So that's kind of how it affects the production of the initial 8. For the next 5, nothing can happen until the strike is resolved. I don't believe that those next 5 episodes have been written. The stories may have been broken. There may be bits and pieces, but I don't think any complete drafts were finished, because the idea was that production would resume, I believe, in November, which is similar to what had happened with season 1, as far as the production schedule went. Those 5 episodes, I think that there were probably ideas. They probably knew where certain storylines were going, certain character arcs might have been going. But from what I've been able to glean, this season is much more episodic in nature, not nearly as serialized as the first season was, that there might not necessarily be the big meta plot that we saw at the project like we did in season 1. And as such, it's possible that other than some of those character beats, other than some of those, smaller arcs that will certainly be contained within season 2, that there wasn't a lot planned out. So I think that we're looking at a situation where until the strike is resolved, and really both of them at this point, I mean, the WGA strike, if it's resolved first, which I cannot imagine will be the case, and SAG-AFTRA is still on strike, then clearly the writers could get back to work writing the episodes. They just couldn't get actors in front of a camera to film them. If that were to happen, though, at least they could start work on writing those 5 episodes. Once the SAG-AFTRA strike is resolved, then the actors obviously can get in front of cameras and work. This is the other piece that I'm not sure the public at large is completely aware of, however. The actors and the writers cannot promote the show, which is the reason why I had to re-record this video, because initially I had talked about the San Diego Comic-Con panel that was going to happen, which I was super stoked for. I thought this was such a wonderful opportunity for the cast to get out in front of an audience, to appear in an event that creates a lot of buzz around entertainment in general and around genre television and films, and has done so for quite a while. I thought it was a really cool chance for them to participate in this. But because of the SAG-AFTRA strike, the writers cannot participate in the panel to help promote the show. So the panel will not occur. It's important to note, too, Raymond Lee posted on his Instagram about this, that they all want to be able to talk about the show. They all want to be able to promote the show. They believe in the show. They love the show. They love the work that they do. Unfortunately, the circumstances surrounding the contracts that are floating around have created a situation where they cannot in good faith continue to work even on something they love so dearly until they start to get compensated the way that they should be. And mind you, this isn't just about the big Hollywood stars or the people who have a steady gig in television right now. This is about the people that might work on 5 or 6 episodes of a show and, have a support day job that they have to go to and still are living technically under the poverty line, certainly living under circumstances that make it very, very difficult to afford living in a city like Los Angeles or the outskirts, for instance. So it's important to remember that SAG-AFTRA goes far beyond, and the WGA go far beyond the people that are winning Oscars or making, $25 million for a movie. It's not about them, though they are, of course, in full support of this, because they want to make sure that the people that aren't making that, the people that might only be making $15,000 a year or less, for that matter, on SAG-AFTRA contracts or WGA contracts and that sort of stuff, that those people are taken care of. So you really do have to look at the bigger picture under those circumstances, and again, understand the fact that they love the show. They love the show and they want to be able to talk about it. They want to be able to promote it, but they cannot in good faith do that. And of course, also it would, basically be crossing the picket lines if they did. And it's not something that they want to do because, again, from what we can gather through social media posts and some of the conversations that I've been able to have, everyone's on board with this. There's not anyone that's sitting there saying like, we shouldn't be doing this. And it might be a case where they don't necessarily really want to do it, but they see the necessity in it. Not only is the SDCC panel canceled, but that also means that we're not going to be seeing them on any television programs, on any print interviews, on any podcasts, which last of all kind of brings me to the show, and not just our show, but Quantum Leap podcast as well, and any of the other Quantum Leap or sci-fi genre television podcasts that are out there. They can't do our shows, and I wouldn't even dream of asking them to right now anyway. In fact, I have limited my contact with the people that I do know involved with the show a great deal over the past like 2.5 months since the WGA strike started, because I didn't want to infringe on any kind of boundary that had to be set due to the nature of the strike. And again, something that I support. I'm really proud of them for doing it. As someone who is formerly a member of Actors Equity, for instance, like I get the importance of A, of having a union, and B, making sure that you get the things that you deserve and you're protected. And you know, if you look back on the history of like Actors Equity, for instance, which is the Theatrical Actors Union, you look back on the history of the conditions that actors had to work in sometimes, and what Actors Equity was able to do and provide for them to make sure that they didn't have to do that. It's essential. It's essential to be able to have those protections, because the fact of the matter is, and this is the dirty little secret that's not really so much a secret, we would all do it for free. We'd do it for just room and board. Now that's impossible, and nobody should do it for that. Everyone should be paid, and paid well, and taken care of, and being able to take care of themselves and their families, et cetera, et cetera. The fact is, as the business has moved forward, the truth is that actors and writers and everyone really involved with the production of film and television have really been getting less and less. And you can see that anywhere in the country, quite frankly. You know, you look at what the average person brings home per year, and it might look like a bigger number than, you know, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago by a great margin. But you also have to look at what that'll buy. And I'm not here to give an economics lesson by any stretch, but we all know that what we can actually buy with our dollar today is far less than what we could have bought with our dollar 25, 30 years ago. To just really simplify it for a second, at one point in time, you know, the combined income of myself and my spouse, we were making far more money than my father was making 25 years ago when I was a teenager, and yet could not afford the same things that my dad could afford 25 years ago, even though we were making more money. And I think that that's the important thing to consider in this as well, is that, you know, writers and actors might look like they're getting paid more, even on scale, even, you know, when you look at like the bare minimum, but it just doesn't go as far as it used to. And that's part of what needs to change. And of course, the other big thing, of course, is AI, and the way that studios want to try to use AI to write scripts to take the place of actors. And it's just not fair, and it's not right. So all of that said, you know, I would never dream of even asking anyone to be on the podcast right now, or for an interview or anything like that. And if I'm being completely frank, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will. The couple of conversations that I've had with people involved with the show have actually been almost entirely of a personal nature. They haven't even really had to do with the show. So it's not like I'm out there mining, you know, trying to get information, trying to get stuff. It's literally just been, you know, hey, how you doing? Oh, you know, I'm so sorry your father passed, you know, that sort of stuff. So I feel very lucky and grateful to have been able to cultivate those kinds of relationships. But I just wanted to be able to have some transparency, of course, with our audience, and saying, like, I'm not even really asking for that right now, because I know that they can't. And I just want you all to know that they can't, because I don't want you to think that they've turned their backs on us, you know, that the show has had some measure of success, that there's these Hollywood Critics Association Award nominations now, which we'll get to in a second, that they're, you know, having a panel, or we're going to have a panel at SDCC, you know, that the show's got the second season, that they've, you know, they're moving forward, the network's excited about the show. You know, it's not anything like that. I think that given the opportunity, I can almost say this with 100% certainty, given the opportunity, the cast and crew would love to be able to be back on Fate's Wide Wheel, or the Quantum Leap podcast for that matter, or, you know, anyone else that's out there that's, you know, reached out to them. They want to talk about the show. They would love to talk about the show. They'd love to talk about the work that they have done and hope to continue to do once the strike resolves. So that felt like the most important thing to talk about right up front, just to give everyone a bit of an update as far as I am aware of, and the information that I have. And I don't necessarily think I have that much more information than anybody out there could get, just, you know, with a little diligence on the internet. But I have had some conversations, and I think that it's important to just reassure the fandom that the people creating this show and working on the show love it. They love the fandom. You know, someone remarked to me actually that they thought it was quite special, the way that they had seen this fandom, and having worked on other shows that have a fandom, they felt like there was something very special about this circle of fans, and I'm so proud to be a part of that, and I'm so proud to be someone that can contribute to that, and I'm really, really grateful for the listeners and watchers, and everyone that's out there kind of leaping alongside of us, because it has been such a joy. It's brought a lot of joy to me over the past year, especially at a time when things have been difficult at times personally. So I'm just grateful for that. I'm grateful for you. And hopefully this helps to assuage any potential fears or frustrations that we might have right now, because it is frustrating. It sucks. I wish that this wasn't the case. And it's important to note too that we can still talk about like the network. We can talk about producers. We can talk, because obviously there's a huge difference in like an executive producer on the show Quantum Leap and some of the CEOs and big wigs that call themselves producers or whatever that are not willing to come to the table with the writers and the actors. It's important to note that. And it's the same thing with the networks. There are a lot of people that work at these networks, that represent these networks, that help to make decisions at the networks, that really do want the writers and actors to get what they deserve. It's just that unfortunately you have some billionaires who are at the head of the table that don't want to play fair, quite frankly. So all of that said, I genuinely hope that there can be a resolution sooner rather than later. And I genuinely hope that they can get back to working on the show that I know that they love working on and that we love watching. I really, really hope to see that. And not just, for our fandom, for Quantum Leap, but really for all of the shows and films out there that have had to shut down. I was reading something about, I'm actually not even that interested in the film, to be completely honest with you. It's just in my, my sphere, because it's something that I've loved in the past, but like Deadpool 3 had to shut down production. And that stinks, because I know there are a lot of people that are excited about that film and excited about seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again. And, this comes hot on the heels after they released that picture of Hugh Jackman in the classic, yellow and blue Wolverine costume and stuff. So I know his arms weren't bare. Come on, guys. Anyway, I digress. Another project that I really was actually looking forward to a great deal was the Bob Dylan biopic that was going to be shot with Timothée Chalamet. And it's too bad that's a project that was supposed to start filming during COVID, and obviously couldn't because of COVID, so it got pushed back, and then it got pushed back again, and now here it is having to be delayed again, and there's questions as to whether or not it's actually even going to happen now, and that's too bad, because I think it was an exciting prospect to see him play Bob Dylan, to have a film like that being made, period. So there's a lot of art out there, unfortunately, that will suffer and perhaps never get made or never get finished or never get seen because of this situation. And I'm just trying to kind of keep my eye on the ball and not get too focused kind of on this micro level of, what about Quantum Leap? When's our show coming back? What are they going to do next? It's not about that right now. And I love talking about it and I want to talk about it, and we certainly will. But again, it's important to keep in mind that there are people's livelihoods and people's passions, people's art, people, the things that they love most are at stake. So we support them, and we hope that it's resolved quickly, and that, they can start promoting the show and talking about the show, and most importantly, creating the show again. Speaking of which, something that you probably see in the background right now are these two beautiful J.J. Lindell prints, one for the classic series episode MIA and another for the revival, O Ye of Little Faith. Thank you so much, J.J. Lindell, for all the work that you have done. I genuinely believe you helped to increase visibility of the series through your exceptional artwork. And of course, we're not the only ones who noticed, because the cast and crew of the show are big fans as well. And I know for a fact that some of them have purchased your art and your t-shirts. And if you want to make sure that you own some JJ Lindell prints or t-shirts and whatnot, you can go to jjlindell.com. That's JJLENDL.com and pick up pretty much every single episode of the revival series he did a print for, and numerous episodes of the classic series he's done a print for. You can't see it right now, it's off to the side, but I do have sort of a postcard size, or no, it's not off to the side, excuse me, it's right behind me. The Star Trek ones are off to the side. The Quantum Leap ones right there, from Future Boy, which is also incredible. Incredible piece. His art is fantastic. We've had him on the show before, hope to have him on the show again. Anyway, I just I can't help but gush over great people doing great things, and JJ certainly qualifies as that. He's done some really cool X-Files artwork recently for X-Files Celebration, which is awesome, and some really great stuff for Star Trek Picard, the third season. Did some amazing prints for that as well. So make sure you check out jjlindell.com, and you can pick that stuff up, including the amazing MIA poster. It's probably one of my favorite pieces that he's done, just period. I just love it. And we'll talk more about that later. Maybe even go in a little deeper to some of the art that he's done recently, if we can get him back on the show. He's a busy guy. The other thing that I wanted to do, and kind of the one of the main points of even creating this video, is I wanted to talk about two very exciting things. One of which is the Blu-ray and DVD release of season 1 of Quantum Leap, which came out a little over a month ago. And Dennis and I had been talking about putting something together. And I know that he had prepared like an unboxing that I think he was going to do on TikTok and Instagram, but just hadn't necessarily finished that. And I had done the same thing kind of at the same time. We really didn't coordinate too much. We just knew that was something we wanted to do, and I decided to scrap it because it didn't feel like it was as good as it could have been, and also I wanted to reshoot after the SAG-AFTRA strike was announced. So I get to do it again now because I'm kind of just going to do this live. It's more fun that way. And we also wanted to talk about Matt Dale's Beyond the Mirror Image Volume 2. I know that the Kickstarter backers, myself included, are eagerly awaiting Volume 1, which is kind of the how do I want to put this, the second edition, if you will, of the initial Beyond the Mirror Image, which came out about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago now. And that volume really contained everything he could possibly cram in there about Quantum Leap. And Volume 1 now, this new edition, is going to be everything about the classic series. Volume 2, however, is all about Quantum Leap, the revival. And I was super excited when I saw this go up. His website, forevertv.co.uk, has links to where you can purchase the book. You can also just go to lulu.com and search for Beyond the Mirror Image or Matt Dale, and the book will come up. It's great, spoiler alert, and it's totally worth it. It's amazing and incredible that he was able to turn it around so quickly, and that we have it in our hands. So without further ado, let me just grab it. It's right behind me. You might be able to see it here. So let's reach over. It's probably not a flattering position, but oh well. And talk about Beyond the Mirror Image, The Observer's Guide to Quantum Leap, Volume 2, The Revival. First of all, it looks lovely. I love the green. Obviously, the classic series kind of had more of that blue aura for the leap out effect. And the revival leaned more into kind of a green color palette for that. And I love that he has adopted that for this volume. It works perfectly. And clearly, the first volume will have that blue effect, which was also something that the initial edition did as well. It's just a lovely looking book, hardcover, which is also nice. And once you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, you'll see that he's given us a little extra, because it's not just the revival. There's actually an entire section, The Road to Revival, almost 60 pages, where he goes into not only the cancellation of the classic series and the murmurings of some sort of revival, a TV movie, the Sci-Fi Channel revival, this or that, all sorts of murmurings that we heard over at least the decade after the show had been canceled. And then kind of goes one step further into some of the unofficial, unlicensed continuations, including Deborah Pratt's own Time Child novel and the fan film A Leap to Die For. My former colleague, if you will, Josh Ramsey, he actually played Sam Beckett in that film. He and I acted in a couple of shows together when I was living in Indianapolis. So Anyway, I think that was a really cool route to take, a wonderful opportunity to kind of talk about the road that got us to the revival. And I love that Matt, I mean, of course he did, took the time and care to, to not just gloss over. It could, I think that some authors honestly would have covered that in like a page, right? This happened, and that got us here. And instead, he really takes the time to give us a wonderful overview of what happened in the nearly 30 years that we had to wait for the revival. He also talks about some of the cameos that Scott Bakula did on other shows, where he seemed to be in the character of Sam Beckett and leaping around in time, which was great. And then brings us, of course, to season 6, as a lot of the fandom has coined it. It's great because, again, it talks about sort of the initial announcement that they were going to shoot this pilot, and we all got excited. And then somehow, some way, I got the pilot script sent to me about, 2 weeks after that announcement. And I'll say this now, but the only 3 people that had access to that, by way of me anyway, was myself, Dennis, and Matt. We had to share it with Matt. And it was one of those things where I was kind of like, do we share it with Matt? We got to share it with Matt. And we did. And we shared it with Matt. And so, it's a journey that he's been on since the very beginning as well. And he covers, obviously, a lot of that early talk around at the casting announcements, the investigative work that he did to discover some of those casting announcements, including Mason Alexander Park. I love the story of how he did that. He had been following Raymond Lee because Raymond Lee had been announced. Then he noticed that Raymond Lee had become a follower of Mason Alexander Parks on Instagram, on their account, and kind of put 2 and 2 together that, Quantum Leap has a non-binary character. This is a non-binary actor. I bet this is going to be the person that plays Ian. And sure enough, they play Ian, and Matt figured all that out just from noticing those things. So his investigative work is non-pareil as it pertains to Quantum Leap. And then I think that from there, it kind of gets into, if you've seen the initial Beyond the Mirror Image, it gets into sort of your regular episode overviews. Only they're not so regular, because these are much more exhaustive. We're talking, multiple pages devoted to each episode. In the old book, you'd get 2 or 3 pages at most. And granted, the print was small and they were, double columned and that sort of stuff. But, the premiere episode, for instance, July 13th, 1985, gets 16 pages. And it's used well. There's lots of great stuff in here, stuff from call sheets, stuff from interviews that they conducted over at Quantum Leap Podcast, stuff from interviews that we conducted at Fate's Wide Wheel. That's the other thing that's really cool about this book on a personal note, is seeing, our names and our podcast in it, used as reference material for the book. And it's a great reminder that the work, honestly, that they did over at QLP and the work that we've done here at Fate's Wide Wheel has really, I think, represented the exhaustive and, dare I say, even authoritative commentary on the first season of the revival. Just with the interviews that we've been able to conduct, the information that we were able to get even early on, and then even deep into the process was really helpful, quite frankly. And was something that we're so lucky to be able to have, and grateful to be able to share with all of you, and grateful to have you all to share it with. So the book does a wonderful job going into detail about everything. You've got kind of the sections made up with official synopsis, the leap in, the scenes that might have been cut from the episode, the kisses with history, God, time, fate, whatever, music cues, allusions, the production notes, etc., and then Matt's own personal review, stuff at the project, stuff at the all sorts of really cool stuff in here. And again, I just cannot see how any fan of the show wouldn't want to own this. It's well worth it. And again, it's if you're looking for a book on the revival series, A, this is all there is, and B, even if it wasn't, I will absolutely stand by saying it's going to be the best thing that you could possibly have. So go over to forevertv.co.uk or lulu.com. And if you go to Lulu, just search for Matt Dale or Beyond the Mere Image, and you'll be able to see it'll pop up right away. It's awesome. It's great. Deborah Pratt is even quoted on the back. I mean, come on, what more can you ask for? We love Matt. Everybody knows that we love Matt. And even if we did not have some sort of kind of personal relationship with him, we would still heartily recommend this book, because before we ever got the chance to talk to him or know who he was, it was his book that inspired this podcast, the first edition. So grab it, go get it. You'll love it. And I think you'll probably be able to learn some new things, especially if you're a listener of only Fate's Wide Wheel, because, you know, while we've tried to be as exhaustive as possible on the podcast, and indeed have devoted more time and podcasting hours to the show than it has actually aired, I think that there's plenty to be gained from reading this, plenty of stuff that we missed, plenty of stuff that we didn't get, people that we didn't get to talk to that they did, you know, and vice versa. Like, that's the other thing that was cool about Matt using our interviews and using our podcast for this book and for the other books actually as well, is that you know, we got interviews that they didn't get, and we talked to people that they didn't talk to and asked different questions to people that they did talk to. So wonderful information. It certainly goes beyond either podcast too. It's not just like, oh, it's just a distillation of what the podcasts talked about for the past year. It's not that at all. There's a lot more there, and I've loved kind of going through it, and I think as I rewatch the series, it'll be, you know, at my side, just because it'll be a lot of fun to kind of follow along and read up on the episodes. And there's a very good chance that, quite frankly, when Dennis and I do get around to revisiting those episodes and doing some of our capsule reviews, we will very likely be using the book the same way that we used his original when we went through the classic series. And how will you be rewatching Quantum Leap Season 1, you ask? Well, let me tell you. You could stream it on Peacock. That's totally fine. But I have to say that there's a better alternative as far as I'm concerned. Again, unflattering angle, but that's okay. Because the official Blu-ray release, physical media release of Quantum Leap Season 1 is now available. You can pick this up on any online retailer. I have yet to see it in a brick and mortar retailer. No Target, Walmart, Best Buy. I've not seen it in any of those. So I do think you're going to have to go to an online retailer in order to pick this up. It is 4 discs, you know, pretty bare bones. There's some nice write-ups on the inside, nothing that we really haven't seen before about the individual episodes. You know, you get the back with the description. We've seen this promotional image a ton of times. So from the outside, it's fairly unremarkable. And I just want to get this out of the way up front. I believe strongly in physical media. I think it's a wonderful way to not only support the stuff that you love, but it's a wonderful way to make sure you have it, that you're not dependent on a streaming service, that you're not you know, dependent on, yeah, let's just leave it at that. So I firmly believe in owning physical media. I mean, just look behind me, for goodness sake. And I think that this is a great way to own season 1 of Quantum Leap. That said, there are definitely some caveats. There's some places that I got to knock it, and I got to be a little critical of it. Let's talk about that first, and then we'll get back to the positive stuff. There are no special features, and I mean none. There's nothing, not a trailer, none of the mini Leap trailers that they did. You know, like the rock star, the football player, the you know, the Joe Montana thing, the Desert Storm thing. None of that is there. There's just nothing. No audio commentaries, no behind the scenes stuff. Absolutely nothing there at all. The good thing is you've got us, you got QLP, you got Matt's book. There's plenty of great stuff out there, so at least you can get that, you know, kind of behind the scenes special feature kind of feel from other outlets. But it would have been nice to see something officially produced. It would have been really nice to see some official audio commentaries. I know that we had a plan. We'd talked to a couple of people. I think QLP had done the same thing. We were going to record some audio commentaries for the episodes with some of the cast and crew. That can't happen right now, obviously. Maybe it'll happen down the road. But again, it would have been nice to have something official. I know it probably would have been hard timing wise because they were hard at work, going through working this whole time. They didn't necessarily have a lot of free time to, sit in a booth for an hour and a half or whatever, doing audio commentary. But it just would have been nice to have some of those special features, to have something on there, to have those, mini leap trailers that they did in the lead up to the show. It just would have been nice to have a little something. But again, it's not surprising. Bare bones releases for TV shows in particular is kind of the norm. The other thing that I will say is that I know that the show was shot at a high resolution on great cameras, and whether or not it was, it actually had any sort of 4K, master, it would have been really, really nice to see the potential for a 4K release, because I do think the show's fairly, visually stunning, and it would have perhaps benefited from that. But I also think that maybe I'm, overshooting things a bit and being a bit of a dreamer on that, because I don't necessarily know that would have worked. The other thing that's kind of interesting about the set is that it does have a DTS master audio track. In fact, let's go over some of the tech specs real quick, just to kind of get that out of the way. The codec is MPEG 4 AVC, which is completely the norm, especially for a Blu-ray like this. It's in 1080p resolution, so it's basically the best you can get on the Blu-ray. It's in the original aspect ratio of 1.78 to 1, which will mean that you get the kind of the widescreen going on. We've got a DTS HD master audio 5.1 surround soundtrack on here, which is awesome if you've got a surround setup. Even if you don't have a surround setup, if you've got a really good soundbar and subwoofer, you're going to get some really great stuff out of this. Here's something that's awesome, and you can almost look at it as a special feature, unfortunately, because there are some releases, including the Classic Series release, that do not have this. We do have English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing, which is awesome. And whether or not you are deaf or hard of hearing, or you just need to turn the volume down way low because there are kids sleeping in the other room, hey Dennis, this is a great way to be able to follow along and watch the show without missing the dialogue. Let's talk a little bit about that dialogue for a moment and go back to the sound, since I mentioned it. This is where we get into the positive stuff. That soundtrack is great. It's crystal clear. The dialogue sounds amazing. The show itself is not too special effects heavy. We've got some episodes that are, like Leap, Die, Repeat, or Judgment Day, the finale. Like there's some big stuff going on, and it sounds big, and it works all the channels. You're going to hear stuff coming from behind you, or a little bit thrown off to the side maybe, and that sort of stuff. It's not just going to be a pure, like, you get a rumble in your subwoofer and the blast of sound coming straight out at you. It definitely utilizes those channels really nicely, which is great. I mean, the sound mixing on the show is fantastic, and the Blu-ray certainly represents that. But I think, again, the most important thing, at least for me, is that even when you get into those more intimate scenes, the dialogue just sounds so sharp, so clean, so clear, so expressive. It really is a wonderful soundtrack, and you'll notice it kind of all around you and all over the place, which is great. You kind of want that level of immersion, and I think that sometimes sound quality, especially with physical media nerds, sound quality is something that people are so excited about, and it's kind of the most immersive thing for watching these films and these television shows, is when you got that really good soundtrack. It's great. It's not like it's the best I've ever heard. I mean, certainly I've heard more immersive soundtracks or whatever, like a Top Gun Maverick 4K. It's not going to compete with that, but for what it is, it's fantastic. And I think fans of the show and fans of physical media that have a nice setup will certainly be pleased with it. Let's talk about video. The video looks amazing. Now, I should note real quick that I am watching this on an LG OLED screen C2 television, which is a pretty good television. So I certainly have a good screen to look at, which is important. But that said, I mean, just looking at the picture and looking at how wonderful the skin tones look, how amazing the color, colors really pop. The level of detail and clarity is absolutely there. It looks like just a wonderful. It looks like an amazing television show that was shot in 2022. That is what it is, and it looks like it is absolutely better than the broadcast versions. It is absolutely better than the Peacock streaming versions. If you want to look at the show the best way you can possibly look at the show, look no further than the Blu-ray. It is. You will notice the difference. It's quite amazing, actually. I was surprised. I did not think there would be that big of a difference. I sort of figured, it's funny because for me, having watched the shows on the screeners, and the quality's not always that great on the screeners, to then watching the broadcast, to then having streamed some of the episodes on Peacock, like seeing the progression of the quality, it's like, oh yeah, this is a good looking show. I mean, I knew it was, but this is a good looking show. To finally seeing it on the Blu-ray, it's just sort of like, wow, this is an exceptionally good looking show. And the Blu-rays definitely do it justice. So again, it's too bad that we don't get, special features. It's too bad that we can't get the resolution bump that a 4K would give us, knowing that it was shot in 8K. I believe it was shot in 8K. It's too bad that we don't necessarily get that. But again, for what we do have, I think it's a great release. If all you're concerned about is watching it the best way you can watch it and listening to it the best way you can listen to it, go with the Blu-ray. If those things don't matter to you and you're not a physical media person, then you're not missing out, unfortunately, because there are no special features. And that is too bad, because they would have absolutely been a selling point for people that might not necessarily be the physical media nerd, like I am, and want to have that, and want to have, like, I have to have the best quality picture or whatever. Not that that's necessarily the case. I have plenty of things that I don't care about the quality of the picture. I just want to see the show. That said, I hope that if you're listening to this, you're watching this, you will support the format, you will support the show. Those numbers can matter just as much as those Peacock streaming numbers matter. So you can find it again, online retailers only right now. Again, I haven't really seen it in any brick and mortar. If you have, let me know. I'd love to be able to kind of just add that and signal boost that for people so they know they can walk into a store and buy it, because that would certainly be cool. But you can definitely get it at your online retailers, sitting around $25 to $30. And not bad to own a full season of television. And I think definitely worth it. And you should note that this is not like a budget release. I think that there was some, it is, but it's not a budget label like a Mill Creek or something like that kind of churn out usually sort of slightly subpar stuff. Although even the original, the classic series of Quantum Leap looked really good. So it's not always terrible. Anyway. With all that said, another way that you can watch Quantum Leap if you are in the UK is on Paramount Plus. The first 9 episodes have been released. So I know it's another streaming service, and things are complicated with streaming services right now because of the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. But if you're in the UK, you've yet to see the show, and you want to see the show, that's the way to do it. Again, the first 9 episodes are available now. So check it out if you are across the pond. That really kind of brings me to the end today. I don't have too much else to talk about. I just wanted to be able to hop on and generate some Quantum Leap content, some Fates Wide Wheel for the listeners, for the viewers. It has been an interesting couple of months with the strikes, with everything that's been going on, even in my personal life. There's just been a lot of stuff, and Dennis has been very busy as well. But again, I just want to say we will absolutely be back to cover season 2. We hope to be able to talk to cast and crew again, like we did for season 1. We hope to have the opportunity to kind of give you the content that we were able to last season. But there's no way of telling. At the very least, you'll get to hear us talk about the show. So at least there's that. And we're really looking forward to it. I'm very excited about it. What little I do know about it, I think that it is going to, it's going to blow you away. It really is. There's some really, really cool stuff coming. And, there's a hell of a lot that I have no idea about. I know that some of the episodes that people are really excited about include the first episode of season 2. I've heard that the 4th episode, I believe, the 7th and 8th episode, those 4 in particular, I've heard, nothing really about. Like, I don't know the plot. I don't know what's happening in them. I just know that there's been some excitement over them from cast and crew members that I've had the fortune of being able to speak to briefly. So, let's get excited. We can be excited. Things kind of suck in some ways, but there's nothing wrong with being excited about something we love, because the truth of the matter is the people that are involved, the people that are in the trenches, so to speak, right now and on those picket lines, they're excited. Even though they can't work on the show right now, which breaks their hearts, they're excited about the work that they've done. So there's no reason that we can't be excited as well, while also throwing our support in, lifting our voices, and letting the powers that be know that we are not happy that they are not being able to create that which we love so dearly due to the unfair practices that they are being put under. So, let's get out of here. Let's sleep out of here. But before we do, I forgot something very, very, very important. Dennis would be like, for shame, Sam, for shame. If I was around, you wouldn't have forgotten. But I did, because there was a lot to talk about, and my brain was just swirling around. Imagine the leap effect, and that's my brain. So I forgot something very important, and I want to get to that right now. The support that people have given to this podcast just through listening is more than enough. It's more than I ever could have asked for. When Dennis and I first started this, we just thought that maybe there would be, hey, if there's 5, 10, 15, 20 people that listen to us, great. And the fact that there's so many more that listen to us, it really... It gets you through some hard days. It makes you smile. It makes you feel good. And I really appreciate it. I can't tell you just how much I appreciate it. So I want to take this moment to thank those of you that have gone above and beyond even just listening or watching, and have donated some of your hard-earned money to the show. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us to upgrade equipment. It helps us to do a little bit more. And we've used it. I mean, we've used it in order to get the services that we have in order to produce the show. Transcripts are coming. So, for those that, might be hearing impaired or want to be able to read some of the interviews that we've done and whatnot, you'll be able to see that hopefully soon. And again, more to come in the future, hopefully, that we'll be able to do. Who knows? One day, maybe we'll get to fly out to LA or San Diego if there's Comic-Con next year or whatever, and talk to some of these people in person and bring you some interviews like that, which would be really cool. Or maybe, just maybe, when things get resolved, they can come to Chicago and do one of the cons here in Chicago, like Fan Expo or C2E2, and we can go there and bug them there. So thank you all so much for that support. It means the world to us. And we promise there's more to come, and we're going to figure out ways to reward you even further. So Al's Place Leap fan site, Bourbon and Boardgames, Carolyn, Cosplay Dad, Joanne Bartlett, Dana Bius, Rich Bourque, Kevin Butcher, Carol Davis, Stan Twohig, Deckslower, Dermot Devlin, Barry Donovan, Brian Dreadful, Troy Evers, Larry Ganni, Jason Geis, Kelly M, Michelle Hoffman, Amy Holtcamp, Laurie Johnson, Bess A. Korey, Lady Eternal, Robb Nunn, Oddly Specific with Audra, Christopher Redmon, Adrian Saul, Karen Saxon, Jerry Seward, Mike Stoufer, Heather Strabiak, Damon Sugamelli, Larry Trujillo, Stuart Williams, Jill Wilson, and our anonymous patrons. Thank you all so very much. If you would like to become a patron of the show, you, of course, can head over to our Patreon. Or you can do our Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. That stuff is in the show notes, so you'll be able to find it below or wherever, however you're consuming this. And we would love to have you on board. As I always say, I hope that you're doing what you can to support your local charities and local causes or the world at large. There's a lot of people that need help, and we can absolutely do our part in setting right things that might be going wrong. Some of course, my favorite charities do include the Trevor Project and Doctors Without Borders. Of course, there's also the ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center. Those are just some of the big ones. Find a cause that's dear to your heart, make a difference. What would Sam Beckett do? What would Ben Song do? Hell, what would the whole Project Quantum Leap crew do? Because they're all very much wanting to put things right where they might be going wrong, and we can certainly do better. So if after all of that, you still have some coins kicking around in your pocket and you do want to throw them our way, then by all means, visit our Patreon, go to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, and help us out. And we'll continue to create and do stuff and find ways to reward you. And if you have any suggestions for that, please feel free to throw them our way, because sometimes as two tired parents, we do, have trouble coming up with things, having time to meet to come up with things. But when we do have time to do those things, there are two other very important, very special people that we need to thank. And that, of course, are our spouses, Jessica Conger That's mine. And Betsy Freimeyer, that's Dennis's, for helping out and giving us the support that we need, whether it's, looking after the kids while we're sitting in front of microphones, or just allowing us to do this and not thinking that we're too nuts. So they're the best. It's also Hattie's birthday. It's my daughter, so she turns 5 today. So happy birthday, Hattie! She's not listening, and we will be back soon. Pay attention to our TikTok and our Instagram. Dennis is cultivating most of the content over there right now. That's just kind of where his headspace is. It makes sense for him to do that, and he's really good at it. I'm not, and I'll be handling most of the podcasting and YouTubing. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I'm just got some time to do it, so I'm going to do it. And we will certainly be following along with the strike, seeing what information we can get with that. Hopefully have a little bit more information about what's happening at San Diego Comic-Con, because even though the panel's canceled, there are still advertising for Quantum Leap HQ, Save the Universe, Save Your Favorite TV Shows. Almost reminds me of like Heroes, Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. And there seems to be some sort of installation that will still be occurring there, Quantum Leap HQ, that people can participate in. There's actually a sign up for it online, I believe. If you go to sdccblog.com, you can find a little bit more information about that. I tweeted some stuff out earlier today, so take a look on our Twitter page also for some more information and pictures of that. If you're going to be at Comic-Con or in the San Diego area, you might be able to check that out. If you are, let us know. Let us know what you find, because we won't be able to be there. So with all of that said, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Stay safe out there. And remember, always, always leap responsibly.